I was reading several of Emerson's essays, and in one of them he emphasized that good writing and speech were directly linked to nature. That immediately made me think of a book, Being There, and its main character, someone who is called Chance the gardener, who later becomes Chauncey Gardner, and who says things like, "I know the garden very well. I have worked in it all my life. It is a good garden, and a healthy one. The garden needs a lot of care. I do agree with the president. Everything in it will grow strong in due time." For this, that gentle cipher of a man is elevated to a policy advisor to the president and is a possible candidate for vice president in the next election. The thought of that book, a satire which I hadn't read in a long time, made me think of its author, Jerzy Kosinski. When I looked him up, I got a surprise, so much so that I decided to read a few more of his books. I'll talk about the 3 I read in this piece, and then in the next I'll talk a little about the author himself, with the warning that, of course, I never knew him. It's just my proverbial grain of salt. I read The Painted Bird, which some called his masterpiece, and a book entitled Steps, which was highly praised by an author I respect, and a book of essays called Passing By. I was completely unprepared for The Painted Bird, and that's a considerable understatement. The book is grisly, ghastly, gross, and graphic. I've never read anything that compares to it. In the course of reading it, and it's not a long book, about 250 pages, I did not want to return to it. I wanted to stop, but I did finish it, and that took something out of me. While I was reading it, I also read an interview with Stephen King in a magazine, and let me tell you, Stephen King, the horror master, never wrote anything half as horrible as The Painted Bird, not even close. It's a survival story, how peasant people survive using a combination of practical knowledge and rampant superstition, and Stevie Wonder got it right on that when he sang, "If you believe in things that you don't understand, then you suffer." A young boy is separated from his family in wartime. He is a gypsy or a Jew, and he moves from village to village seeking shelter and food. He finds cruelty, terror, and brutality, which, impossibly, become ever more gruesome as the days and months pass. It's like seeing gargoyles on a building. Every person, every event is dreadful with a fearful conclusion. It's like reading Grimm's fairy tales, only the tales are much more than grim, and there are no fairies, only people doing terrible, terrible things. Torture and murder are everywhere. Corpses are looted for shoes and clothing. In the background are trains packed with living bodies bound for crematoriums, where the slaughter is distant but worse. And then the soldiers show up, mercenaries separated from Soviet troops. An entire village is sacked and raped and burned, very, very graphically. The book is unrelentingly terrible, monstrous, malignant. I searched for a word to describe it, considered many, and I settled on malignant. It festers. It should come with some kind of a warning. It is like Dickens writing about the lives of Oliver or Pip, only it's not set in London, it's in hell. It's been compared to painting by Hieronymus Bosch, and I find that accurate. Man's inhumanity to man has never, I don't think, been more finely detailed or fully displayed. The book Steps is a series of vignettes and some snatches of dialogue. The style and structure reminded me of The Painted Bird, and there are scenes of horrible revenge. There is also quite a bit of sex and sex talk in the book, but it did not seem to me to be about sexual relations, eroticism, so much as exploring the possibility of having any kind of interrelation at all. The title suggests a journey, a kind of pilgrim's progress, and it does lead to an airplane flight to America, where the narrator discovers a new underworld in which he must adapt and learn to survive. I read the essays Passing By because I thought they might serve as a kind of compass to help me through the other books, and the author as well. I was not disappointed in that. I think the title, Passing By, stands in counterpoint to that other one, Being There. And it reminds me of what Yeats put on his grave marker. Cast a cold eye on life, on death. Horsemen, pass by.